Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2022 One Sustainability Conference, our annual global sustainability event. We now have the pleasure to welcome David Muyres, co-founder and chief commercial officer for Streetscope America. David will tell us more about Futurama 2.0, inspiring a safe and sustainable mobility future.
All right, thank you. And thank you for asking me to share a few thoughts on future mobility, the future of transportation in America. I've spent a long time in the automotive industry and mobility industry, probably the first half of my career in traditional automotive, working for major corporations that supply everything on the inside of the car to pretty much every manufacturer in the world, having lived in Michigan, Germany, Japan, leading product development teams, also traveling to Shanghai, California, Silicon Valley, etc. I've understood the traditional industry and now very excited about what happens next and the role that design can play in creating that future, creating that desirable future. Just a quick background about myself. I'm a designer at heart. I have an engineering background. I've led development teams. I've started nonprofits. I've worked with academia in an array of ways. I like the future. I like future mobility. I like vision, strategy, and exciting people about what comes next. I also like these convening events. So thank you very much for organizing this and bringing kind of key thought leaders together to talk about the future. I've organized these type of events, and it's what really got me motivated to go from traditional car stuff to future mobility and leveraging design to rethink the future and excite people and inspire people about what's coming next. So a bit about the industry that I'm going to talk about and what's going to change. I often talk to traditional automotive industry, trying to get them excited about change and looking forward and adjusting what they do to make for a better future. This industry is massive. The automotive industry, I think, is the world's largest industry if you factor in all of the energy it takes to move the vehicles and move the stuff and whatever. It's massive and it's changing significantly, and that's going to present a lot of opportunity, both good and bad. Hopefully I can help encourage the good side of it. And from a personal standpoint, you know, the US used to be seen as a mobility leader, transportation leader, car maker leader. And I don't know that that's really the case anymore. And I would love it if through everything I'm about here to talk today and the goals of Futurama, we could re-energize the US as a global leader in transportation. So that's why I'm here. That's why I want to talk. And again, thanks for the opportunity. There's a lot of change out there, massive changes, as I mentioned. And some people, you know, look at, you know, electric vehicles are part of that change, and they are part of the change, but they are not the complete transportation answer. They do improve kind of the energy equation, you know, hopefully using less energy per mile, emitting less CO2 per mile. All of that's good. There's a lot of challenges to scale that up, but it's certainly going in the right direction. What it doesn't solve is the footprint issue, the space issue. You still often move one person in a vehicle that's just as big as a gas-powered and vehicle. So from a space and a congestion and many other issues, cost, accessibility, doesn't solve a lot of those issues. You have autonomous technology, which is also taking up a lot of mental space and so forth. You have the excitement about the technology of a vehicle driving by itself, but it's still pretty much the same size vehicle. It's expensive, so it's not more accessible to many people because it's so excessive, but it does enable some other benefits. In other words, the electric vehicle, when you buy it, it still serves one owner. The autonomous vehicle, it could serve many owners. It could run around by itself, serving 20, 30, 40 different people a day versus just one. Mobility experiences, I think, where a lot of the industry is headed. And that's selling you the experience to get from A to B versus making you pay for the device that you put in your garage, and 90% of the day does nothing for you, actually is expensive to own, insure, takes up space in your garage, which is often the biggest room in your house is for your car that you don't use most of the time. So there's some 3 thoughts about the future. What's coming next? Massive change, as I mentioned. What do those changes look like? Well, everything is changing from an industry, from a user, from how people own the vehicles to the technology inside them, the rules they play by, business, where money is made, what consumers expect, when they're happy, when they're disappointed with their mobility solution, what they're spending money on. All of this is changing. It all drives, I believe, opportunity. But being so complex, it needs a cohesive overvision to pull it all together and make for a desirable future. So in the past, people used to look at, you'd buy a car, you're excited about the engine, and it had to look nice, and you'd lift the hood and you'd say, does it look good? Does it sound good? Does it do the right things for you? Well, that's clearly something from the past that not many people do anymore. And, like this type of Uber or a taxi, I mean, when was the last time anybody ever looked underneath the hood of those vehicles? Those are only going to get more popular and move more people on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. But the expectation of what's under the hood is going to change. Obviously, many electric cars just have a big hole there that's now functional storage or whatever. But anyway, other parts have changed. You look at something like this, and probably many of you are like, well, what? Okay, I get the red bus, the London bus, but what is this thing? Is it an EV? Is it an AV? Does it move people? Is it a security bot? Does it just run around the city taking pictures? Does it deliver food? What exactly is that? It has 4 wheels. It takes up a certain amount of space, but how can you repurpose that in many different ways to provide mobility? In this case, it is an autonomous vehicle designed purely to get you from your house to a longer form of transportation like light rail or buses. So that makes it desirable and easy to get from your house to whatever your longer journey transportation system is. That's all it does. You don't take it to go from, in this case, it's London. You don't take it to go from London to Paris or somewhere on the continent. It's got a very specific role. Here's another one. What is that? That actually operates like a mobile phone in how you pay for it. Citroën is building these to solve transportation in dense cities. You pay for it like a phone, by the mile, by the minute. They're everywhere. You don't own them. They're electric, of course, as everything in the future will be. But you don't own it. You don't have to put it in your garage. It's a lot like a scooter that you rent, but it's a full vehicle, and it looks desirable to use. So in the past, the what, this used to be it. The vehicle. This is what would get you there. And you'd own the vehicle, and then you would, obviously pay all the expenses related to changing oil, insurance, parking, et cetera, et cetera. But the future is about how you get there, not what you own, but the experience of getting from A to B. And was that journey, that time spent, desirable? Did it lower your stress levels? Did it do other things for you over and above getting you from A to B? In the past, things like styling, cost, features, how many cup holders were a measurement of progress and success and what you wanted in your next car. Those things are all kind of minor today, and definitely more minor in the future. Things like autonomous, do you share the whole vehicle? Do you own the whole vehicle? Revenue models, and then moving goods are major drivers in enabling and driving change in the future. Consumer satisfaction is also going to come from, as I mentioned, is it simple to use? Is it lower cost? Is it sustainable? Of course, it's got to be safe. Does it make you happy? Is it more accessible to people? A lot of other factors are going to drive, what is good transportation? What is future better transportation for the country? One thing that I think will stay is it's got to be cool. It's got to look desirable. And so you have things like this that are very functional, utilitarian, for street cleaning. But even something like that, you can make cool. And these you don't ride around in this one on the right. It's autonomous, but the vast majority of people are going to say the thing on the right is what I'd rather be associated with versus the thing on the left. And being associated with it is something where terms that can be used in ride sharing, car sharing, or where you just pay for what you use versus having to own the device and then park it. So real quickly, just to reiterate how complex all of this and how we need to think about all this differently. I do this in many of my events, just very quick top 5 things I would think about if I were some industry exec. Typically they're automotive, but I'm not sure who all is going to be watching or listening to this. And so it's probably more diverse, but these can apply to other industries going through change as well. But these are 5 things that I would think about over and above all the traditional easy things when it comes to car change and batteries and lithium and stuff. Trying to get ahead of all this change. The first one is time. Time is a universal constraint for everybody who's ever going to watch this. Anybody in the US, anybody in any country, whether you are Trump, Biden, or the recent resigning prime minister in the UK, everybody has 24 hours a day, no matter what you do. No matter what political party you're from, no matter what, everybody has 24 hours. And the more you can provide product and services that allow you better use of that 24 hours, that make you happier or healthier or something, and you can show how that's a differentiated aspect of your product, people are going to like that. People are going to want that. They're going to pay more for that. So how you provide better use of time is important in the future of transportation, or pretty much in any product. The second is just a paradigm of how you think about driving. And in this case, driving versus commuting. This is what many people think about driving. You know, a fun sports car out in the country, windy roads, maybe a top down, sun's out. You know, that's driving. But that's probably 1-2% of the time you actually get to drive your vehicle. The vast majority, it's like this. You're stuck in traffic, you're going really slow, it's probably loud, maybe the air quality is quite low, but that's commuting. That's a huge percentage of many people's journeys every day, and they think about the one on the left. So maybe designing vehicles or purpose-built vehicles specifically to solve these problems. As I mentioned, mobility experiences are going to be a big part of driving consumer satisfaction with how they spend money on mobility. And things like, you've heard the consumer, consumer satisfaction. In the past, it was, first-year ownership, long-term ownership, 5-year ownership. In the future, it's going to be how satisfied people are, every 20 minutes, 20-minute journeys. Are they happy? What about the next 20-minute journey? What about the 10 20-minute journeys? That's going to drive satisfaction for mobility solutions in the future. Stakeholders, totally changing. In the past, it was the car maker and the car buyer, the person who owns the car. That pretty much drove the entire circle. In the future, like with ride sharing or any kind of shared ownership models, you still have somebody making the car. Now you have a driver, but the driver is not necessarily the owner. Sometimes they are. Then you have a passenger who's very important because they're the money, the revenue for this entire model. They sit in the back, so probably the back of the car is going to get more important now. Now you have an operator like Uber or Lyft that operates this whole thing, and they got to make money out of the whole equation. So they're now a driver influencer, and then they play, in the city typically. And so your old consumer who used to buy the car, now you have consumers that are all throughout this. Plus you have stakeholders that are from the ride sharing industry, delivery companies, service providers, communication data companies, a lot of city people, urban planners, traffic, transportation, insurance. So many key stakeholders now that influence whether these are going to be successful, desirable businesses, push change fast, push change slow. Understanding all of these is important to the future of mobility. And for sure, where the money goes. If you follow where the money goes, where new revenue is going to be made, who's going to drive that, how fast it'll happen, that's going to drive where people spend time, people bring new ideas to the market. And looking at this, in the past, obviously, Ford, GM, Chrysler, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Mercedes, whoever would drive a lot of big decisions when it comes to the future of cars. In the future, you now have companies like Apple and Waymo, which are incredibly well off, have lots of money to spend on the future, and they don't have to spend any money on the past. They're not like the car companies who have to, pay for injection molding machines and keep giant traditional manufacturing plants open and a lot of capitalized investment. They can start fresh. They're going to focus on the service. They're going to focus on capturing money while you move around versus making cars that don't make a lot of profit. So anyway, that's all going to drive a lot of change. So what's next? So getting the industry to change and move forward is not easy. You have people out there who are trying to perfect details from the past because that's all they know and that's what they do. They're sweating the details on the road to nowhere. These lines are never going to become profitable. They might be very straight and they're very evenly spaced, but and it's all a metaphor here, but there's nobody using the road. And the guy's doing a really good job probably, but it's not going to impact the future. So you need to ask some new questions, and these different questions are what going to drive new opportunity and change in the industry. So now I come to Futurama 2.0. So I'm an advocate for an all-new vision for transportation in America. I work with many great, smart people. One of my colleagues and partners by the name of Jeff Wardle leads the graduate transportation program at Art Center. He's also a partner on this. I'm very excited about how we're going to craft this future vision. So a little background of what Futurama means and where that came from. At the 1939 World's Fair, General Motors sponsored a pavilion at the World's Fair that looked at future mobility and future transportation. As you see some people on the left, they go through this kind of amusement park ride and they look down in this landscape of a city, and they're projecting the idea that you could live nicely and have a home in the suburb, commute quickly on this closed highway to the city, work and go back. What inspired me is if you look at this, 2.5 million people went through this kind of amusement park pavilion, and we're excited about the possibilities. And you've probably seen a lot of black and white images from all of that. You didn't even know what you're looking at, but it was from this original Futurama vision of the future. And what's key to me about what was successful then and what parts of that we would use now, it was a design-led vision. It was well thought out. It looked nice. It worked well. It created a cool vision. And it inspired people, like I said, 2.5 million people to want this. It inspired change. When change is inspired and motivates, it happens faster. And that's very desirable for all those involved, the stakeholders, the business people, the politicians that push forward because they get results faster, and consumers get a better lifestyle that much quicker. The big impact on the country was this inspired user set drove their politicians to eventually author the 1956 Highway Bill. And the 1956 Highway Bill is what drove and put in place all of the highways that we have today across the country. And that obviously created a lot of jobs and improved the economy and so forth at the time. But it was effective. You had an inspiring vision. It drove change. People were happy. That's what I'm suggesting we should do today. This vision is now out of date. It was never maintained or improved. There were, we have results that, we have massive congestion. We kind of have too many cars, maybe too many roads. Too much of LA is covered with cement and tarmac and very car centric. And we still don't necessarily have great transportation. So it was a great vision at the time. It was never updated. We needed a new one now. And that's what I'm advocating for. We still have a lot of these issues, but we need other things to improve as well. We need access to improve, so everybody can access how they want to get from A to B, not just those that can afford it, at all different financial income levels. Equity, it's got to be more efficient, obviously, from an energy standpoint. Ownership types are going to change. You're not going to own the device the same way you have. And actually many younger groups don't want to own it. So that's a good thing. Obviously it needs to be more sustainable and more efficient energy wise. and better use of the energy types that we provide. Just a few statements, and then I will close and explain where I'm at today. We want a future that is design driven, holistically balancing human and societal needs equitably, not just only profitably, but equitably. A future that reverses the effects of the climate crisis that we're in, obvious. A future that anticipates a rapidly evolving technology landscape that is pragmatic and achievable. We're not creating a Hollywood movie set, though I've had friends from the entertainment industry that would love to help and make the future exciting. But we also want it to be achievable and functional. And we want to be able to provide the Department of Transportation, Department of Energy teams with kind of bipartisan political capital. We want to be able to provide an exciting vision of the future to, Pete Buttigieg, Jennifer Granholm, the new office in between, the new joint office run by Gabe Klein, with a long-term vision that is implementable, that brings people together, that'll motivate political leaders, that'll stimulate the public excitement so they have support, and then it works. As long as everybody who's there today is in office, whoever comes next is in office, this is a 20, 30, 40-year thing. As you saw how long it took the previous highway system, that wasn't a 1 or 2 year campaign promise to build some bridges and fill some potholes. That was a long-term commitment for the benefit of the country. And we want to make sure that it is business minded, so that all of the corporates that you attract know it's going to be there for 10 years and not just 2 years and change. It's really hard to get corporate support to invest long-term if it's going to keep changing. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm trying to assemble the right, corporate stakeholders, try to find the right stage or platform, just like the original World's Fair. Maybe it's something like the Olympics in 28 or some large venue that would benefit from future mobility minded solutions, both at their event and a showcase into the future. I have one last thought to leave you with, and then I will very much thank you for your attention and your time. This future is not, designing the future for today. Just like with horses, that's what everybody used to use, but that's not what's used in the future. Nobody rides their horse to work for the most part. They're still around. They're fun to play with. They're entertaining, but they're not great forms of transportation. Things change. So a quick little story. I went to an event where a friend of mine was debuting, a chief designer for McLaren was debuting his newest car. I wanted to bring my son, get him excited about traditional car design, car stuff. And so I brought my son. We went to this big press event. Jay Leno, a whole bunch of important people were there. We get up close to the car. It's ready to take the cover off the car, take pictures in the press and so forth. I'm there with my son, and the cover comes off. There's lots of pictures going off. There's a lot of interest in this new, fast, cool car. Definitely for me. I look down at my son, and he could pretty much care less that we're standing right next to this exotic car that's brand new. He's, fascinated with his new technology in his hand, and probably playing Angry Birds or something. That's what he's excited about. Just because we were excited as kids about something, that doesn't mean that's what the future is going to either be exciting or be good for the future. So with that in mind, I want to thank you for your time. If you want to know anything more about Futurama, you can find me at this email address or at that website, ongoingtransportation.com. Love to hear from you. And if you want to be part of it, we're happy to listen. So thank you very much.
Well, David, thank you very much. We've all been aware of the fact that so many things are changing in the automotive industry, and it's a good thing that that's happening. I have spent quite a bit of time in this industry as well, and when we were talking about change a few years ago, we used to call it CASE, which meant connectivity, automation, sharing, because a lot of young people don't want their own car anymore, and electrification.
Yep.
And that's part of what's happening. And let's hope that it goes in a good direction. And I think it's quite exciting what's happening in this industry. So many things are changing. And I thank you very much for your explanation of all this. And how fast do you think these things are going to happen?
Well, the easy stuff that makes money will happen right away, as is normal business case. But some of this won't happen. The only things that will happen are the things that will make obvious money, but there'll be little carved out pieces of this giant puzzle. And what I'm trying to suggest is that, all of the things, even the ones that are maybe less sexy or less profitable, but actually are good for the country, need to be included and designed in and become a natural part of this future landscape of mobility. So I think it needs to be holistically thought through, designed so that all aspects of future mobility are good for this country and not just the profitable ones.
Right. Okay. Well, David, thank you very much for this contribution, which I found most interesting. And we look forward to hearing from you again and continuing our conversation.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.